This will be a short little demo to show you some Fluid Effects Fire. The Fluid Effects Fire is a really easy and kind of efficient way of creating a quick and easy fire effect. It does have some limitations, but I found it to be very useful and kind of effective. It does have a realistic looking fire look to it, and you have some different options. I'm just going to show you one option here, and you can play around with the other ones if you want. So I've set up a little scene here, just a burn barrel and just a couple objects to I'm going to show you how to add a light and cast some shadows. But what you want to do first off is you want to go to the Dynamics render menu set up here. So we're in Dynamics, and you'll have a little you will have a menu set up here, Fluid Effects, and you go to Fluid Effects, Get Fluid Examples, and this will bring up a visor window, which will give you some options here. And we're going to just choose the fire. We're going to open up the fire folder here, and we got a couple of fire examples, fluid examples that we can use here. I'm going to use the campfire one. That's kind of a very useful one. I use a lot, and it's going to work for what we want to do here, which is have a fire inside of this barrel here. So I select it, and I'm going to middle mouse drag it into my viewport, just like that. Okay, I'm also going to, and it's going to bring in it's going to bring in this these curves here, these bounding boxes, and let's just open up the outliner, so window outliner, and you can see that it creates a node in here which is flame fluid. If we open it up, it's going to have a fluid and an emitter. This here is the emitter, this here is the flame fluid. I'm going to extend my timeline to like 200 frames because the fluid effects excuse me, are dependent on the amount of frames that you have in your scene. So I'm going to go to about 200 here, and let's just drag. I'm going to press 6 or 7 in my viewport. Let's just do 6, and I'm just dragging in the timeline, and you can see that it has a nice little fire effect, just like that. If I went back to the beginning, it's going to reset it to frame 1, but we can, as you can see, just drag it, and it will animate like this. And look, if it goes to a certain point, it's going to be somewhat random. Unless you start at frame 1. Let's just say I started at the middle here. It's going to just kind of keep going, and it has a limit. I don't know, I forget exactly what the limit of the time of the fire is, but it'll probably be more than you're going to need, so I wouldn't worry about that. So let's go to fire like that. Okay, so you're going to want to, of course, you're going to want to position this fire. It's going to come into frame 0. There's also, it comes in with a camera, which you can look at the fire with this fire cam here. I tend not to use that. You can if you want. I'm just going to look into perspective mode, and you can actually just delete that camera out of there if it's going to be in your way and you just don't really want it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the flame fluid, or you can just click and drag, but I'm going to select the top node here, and I'm going to start to position and scale the size of the fire in order to fit into that barrel. It's going to have to be fairly small. And let's just go down here like that, and I'm going to put it inside the barrel. You notice it is a flat, it is not really a three-dimensional effect here. It is a flat effect, And so it's going to be dependent on your camera. So you're going to need, if your camera is going to be off to an angle like that, you are going to need to orient that fluid to your camera, just like that. Again, this has limitations. It's not really a three-dimensional effect. It's going to have some flatness to it, but if you do it right, it's going to look pretty good. So I'm going to scale that down a little bit. Now, one thing you're going to notice is that there's this smoke bounding box here, and the smoke is going to end. It's not going to go beyond this box here, so you have to kind of keep that in mind. What you can do is, I'm going to bring this up a little bit out of the barrel, is you can scale the box up as high as you want, and then you can select the emitter, and the emitter is where the fire and the smoke come from, and that can be scaled up as well. You cannot bring the emitter outside of that bounding box or nothing will happen. So if the emitter here is outside of this box here, you're not going to get any effect. If it's out here, you see a little bit's happening out there, but it's not really working. So it needs to be inside this bounding box there. And I like to scale it down just a little, maybe scale it, shorten it a bit if it's don't want it to be such a big fire. And then I'm going to kind of bring it down. Some of that smoke's going to come out from outside of the box a little bit. You might have to deal with that. But as you can see, you've got a pretty good looking fire coming out of that box there. Let's just scale that down a little bit more, a little bit shorter of a fire, and we got a nice looking fire. The other thing that you may want to do, once you've got your fire in here and it's looking the way that you want it to do, this effect doesn't cast any light. It doesn't show any light emitting from the fire. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create an additional light that will simulate the glow of that fire casting on objects around it. So I'm going to create a light. I'm going to create a point light, just like that. Let's go into the attributes of that light. Let's change the color to something similar to what that light is going to cast, so the same color as the fire. You can play around with that if you want, like so. And then you're going to want to position that light like kind of where the fire needs to be, thereabouts, like that. Maybe a little bit like that. Oops, open that up again. And I'm using Mental Ray. Let's just make sure Mental Ray. And so I'm going to give it a ray trace shadow, like so. Okay, and then I'm going to open up its channel box and I'm going to scroll down to its intensity. Let's just do a test render with Mental Ray, and you can see it's casting a shadow. Actually, you can't see it. I'm going to move that light up a little bit, just like that. And let's just see if we got something a little better.